Hi everybody, Leslie here, back in my craft lab, and today's video is part of the Crafting Together with All Brands Facebook group monthly blog hop, which is always the first Monday of every month and it gets released at 9 AM UK time. The theme this month is sunshine and showers, so I have gone quite literal and created some little rain showers. I'm going to show you how to make both these cards. Not a new idea, these sort of bead shaker cards, which is kind of what they are. These have been around forever, they're not new, but I just thought it was a nice thing to do with the theme, and hopefully you'll have something in your stash that you can use. Where I can find them, I will link the products. So I know this stamp set that I've used is still available. I'll check if this die is. This is a Tattered Lace die. Hopefully you might have something in your craft stash that you can use, or to do something similar if you like the idea. Obviously remember to go and hop around everybody else as well. Comment, like, subscribe, all that lovely stuff. It always helps people that are just starting out especially. Let's get on with it and make these two lovely cards. I've got a 4x6" card blank, and I actually like the extra height for this card. You'll understand why in a second. The stamps that I'm using are this set from Inkylicious. It's called Dance in the Rain. This was originally released in 2013, but they are still available. I found these direct from Inkylicious on their website and it's £6.50, so I will link that. And then the paper that I'm using is from Home Bargains. It's a lovely sort of alcohol ink style background. This paper pad was 99p, I think. And actually this is the least sort of alcohol ink looking background of them all. And because it's a 6x6" paper pad, it's going to fit exactly on my card blank top to bottom. So all I need to do is stick this on my card, and then I'll actually just trim the excess off the card. So if it's not, I don't want to cut it to 4 inches, because if it's not exactly 4 inches wide because of where the fold lands, it just means that it's a neater finish. All you need to do when you're trying to stick pattern paper or a panel onto a card is get something like your stamping platform, and the side that you don't want to trim. So I don't want to trim on my, I'm going to take the mat out by the way, because it's a folded card. So I don't want to trim top to bottom, and I don't want to trim on my cut edge. So I've got those two edges butted in there. And then this is where I use wet glue, because I can slide that in and make sure it's slid right into that corner. My card slid into the corner. My paper slid into the corner, and hopefully that means I'll only have one side to trim, or possibly two if it's not dead on at the top here. And you can use any corner. So now I can flip this over, make sure it's well pressed on, and trim from the back. And then just use a nice long pair of scissors and you'll get a nice straight edge. I'm just putting my scissors up to that edge. To make these cards, we're going to need a top and a bottom to hold our raindrops. So I've cut just some scraps of stamping card, some little pieces like this. I've cut them a bit bigger so that I've got some wiggle space, adjustment space. I've already stamped my greeting on the bottom. That's from the same stamp set as the girl that I'm stamping. I think they're about 3 centimetres, but I just decided based on, and I stamped and cut one out just so that I could have an idea, but you could just obviously sit the stamp in there. My stamp's that size. To position it, I'm gonna do this, and then I can leave this in the packaging so that I can kind of reuse this and decide where we're going to put her. So I think she's good there. Pick her up. Take all this. Oh, and the added advantage is if your stamp's dirty, it doesn't matter so much, because that will end up on this rather than on that. And I'm just using VersaFine Onyx Black. We've got, you can't make a rainbow without a little rain, and we've got nice rainbowy colours going on the background. I thought I'd stamp a little sunshine in the background. I've got this little sunshine. This is like an ink blending mat, and I've got Catherine Pooler. This is shea butter. So this is a nice soft yellowy colour. I will show you on the next card where this stamp set's from, because I'm using a greeting off it as well on my next card. So I thought we'd go in sort of there. so that when it's up here, she's kind of looking up towards the sunshine. But that's all a bit stark white, so I thought we would use the same ink. So I got my blending mat out and just give a really soft blend. And always, if you want a soft blend and you don't want any harsh lines, always start off your card like this. The next thing we need to prepare is our little strings. So I've got this nylon string, which is from Tiger in the UK. Now there are tons of different places that sell something similar to this. This one was 18 meters, it's 0.35 of a millimeter. So it's not really thin. It's quite stiff stuff, which is kind of what you want. But any sort of see-through craft thread that will tone in with your background, I imagine fishing line would do a similar job. The beads I'm using, over the years, whenever my kids have had like a craft kit and had things left over, I've chucked all the little packets in here. But you can get little seed bead type things really inexpensively. And because you don't want to sit and watch me thread all of these, I've already pre-prepared a lot, but I'll show you how I did it and what I found to be my quickest method. So I measured my bit of string so it's longer than my card because we can cut it off and it's a lot easier to handle if you've got excess rather than not enough. Then tying a knot just in one end. For these beads, it only needs to be a single knot. They've not got a great big hole in them and it makes quite a big knot when you pull it because it's quite thick thread. Hopefully you can see. And I just took a tray inside and sat and threaded these in front of the TV. And the way I did it is I tipped a few of my beads into my little dish, so any little container dish. And this is actually helpful if you've just put your hand cream on when you're doing this. I just literally stuck my finger in and got 3 or 4 stuck to my finger, just using, just pressed on. And then I'd get 3 or 4 onto my thing, slide them down, and then keep going. And occasionally they'll all ping off into the distance. But because this is stiff thread, you don't need a needle or anything. Obviously, if you've got finer thread, you might need a beading needle, but I'm guessing you can work out a way to thread your beads. But this is how I did it, literally. Poked them onto my finger. See, that one went flying off, which is why I had a tray, so that they didn't go flying across my living room. And I didn't count beads, I just went for the way I estimated how many I wanted on there was if we've got that there, let me shove it into the middle so you can see. So when these are on here, we've only got the distance between these 2 pieces of card and I want them to be able to slide up and down. So I don't want to cover the whole piece that's going to be between these 2 points, if that makes sense, hopefully. I think maybe a couple more, and some have got more, some have got less, so that they won't all sit in a straight line when they're all at the bottom. I think that's nicer. So it only takes a minute or so just to do 1 string. So if you want 10 strings, it might take you 10 minutes, but you get quite quick at it. And you can see they slide up and down there nicely. I've just put another knot at the top, but that's just holding them temporarily. It's not, the knot isn't actually what's actually going to hold them ultimately. So there we go, we've got our little bead. So what you need next is foam tape. So obviously if we stuck this flat, they'd move a bit, but they'd kind of get stuck on the paper. So you need a foam tape that is half the depth or more. So it doesn't need to be really thick if your beads are tiny like these. It just needs to be thick enough to allow them to move. This one I think is about 3 millimeters deep. It's not a very deep one. This is about as thick as the beads themselves. Just using this as a measure, and I'm just using the lines on my mat as well to make sure I at least get it vaguely straight. So I'm just making sure that this is just below where I want my piece to ultimately sit. I'm going to put another one at the bottom because it's going to hold my piece. And the same at the top. So what we're going to do is take our top ones off, and I'm just going to stick my string. Actually, I think I've done 9 of these, so I'm actually going to start in the middle. So we know I've got one right in the middle. And you just want to pull it tight so it's nice and taut there. And slide your beads into the middle. And we're going to pull our bottom tape off. Make sure that's pulled nice and tight, because obviously that's going to help it slide up and down. And again, you can use lines on your mat to make sure you've got it going straight. So I've lined up my top, the knot I've got at the top there, as you can see, so that it's going straight with the line on my mat. And we'll just pull that off. And we'll stick that into the foam tape at the bottom. Because I know I've got 7, I'm going to put my 2 side ones on and then come back and infill, because that'll be easier for the spacing. Do a little test. Yeah, they all slide. And you'll probably find that one bead might just stick to your tape, top and bottom. But I didn't let that worry me. So just check it's all right before you stick anything else down. And I'm just going to give them a little shove into the foam. I'm going to go along and trim off. I will need sharper scissors than that. I need my pointy scissors for this. Now there's 2 different ways we could do this. We can just leave it at this, or you could put another layer of foam tape on and put acetate over the top so that your beads are enclosed. So at this point, if I was going to use an acetate cover so that my beads weren't sort of sticking up, which if you want to post it, that's probably a good idea, because of course this will get kind of squashed. Whereas if I now put another layer of foam tape on top of this and put an acetate piece on top, it would protect the beads and give it another layer. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go straight on and put my top and my bottom on and give it a trim off, and then we're actually finished. And just obviously make sure that's pressed on really, really well now. And that's why I'd left it a bit wider, just so that I could just do that rather than trying to fit it exactly. So other than threading the beads on, that really didn't take long at all. And it's just a fun take on a completely different style of little shaker card. So for card number 2, I've got a 5x7" card blank, purely because this is the size of the die that I'm using. So on this one, I'm going to use the umbrella as the thing to hold my raindrops so that they're not falling past the umbrella. This is a Tattered Lace umbrella die, and it came with some little raindrops as well. And I think this might have been a Create and Craft Club free gift at some point, so there's a chance some of you out there will have this one as well. I'm just going to use pattern paper again for the background. It's quick, simple. I've got a lot of it. If you've not got pattern paper, you could obviously do your own inky background, whatever you want. So this is from Do Crafts Paper Mania. This is the Capsule Collection Elements Wood. I've cut out 2 of my little umbrellas, and I've done it in pink, and I think it's probably about 200 GSM, but because this is going to be up on foam tape and it's quite spindly in places, I've cut 2 so that I can stick them together. And on this die, the little flowers cut out, but I didn't want them to show through with the paper in the background. So for my top one, I've just put some washi tape on the back just to hold those little flower petals in. I have just used 2 Spectrum Light Sparkle pens just to put a bit of shading on it. The silver bit is called Sterling Silver, so that's that one. And the other one, the pink on it, is Pink Champagne, so it's like a peachy pink. And I just went with wherever there was little lines on the umbrella, it's kind of where it's meant to be shadowy, I guess. It's like on a stamp, so I've just gone over the lines where there's little shadowy bits and coloured in the little flowers, so nothing fancy. and obviously I did the handle and kind of the spindly bits. I want to use my card as my background, but I want part of my top piece to, rather than inking it or stamping on it, I want the top piece to continue and be part of the sky this time. So I need to not stick this down yet. I need to trim it to the right size and then cut a strip off the top. Now, I know this is 7 inches tall, so I'm going to cut my paper down to 7 inches, then cut the size that I want off the top, and then I'll trim the edge when I've stuck it to the card. So I'm going to cut 3/4 of an inch, which is about 2 centimetres if you're a metric person. So this will be what at the top, what we're hiding everything under for the top piece, and this we're going to stick flat to the card. So this matches up here, and we'll use this to put our foam tape under. Now, this isn't the thickest, so I think I probably will just put this, back this onto a piece of scrap card, just so we've got a bit more weight to it. And we'll trim this edge off when we've stuck it down on our foam tape. I'm just going to stick these two together and put something heavy on it while they dry. Our top piece is really simple. We're going to put foam tape underneath this. Where our foam tape's going to sit for this, I'm going to use just my die. I could use my die cut as well, it doesn't matter. And I've just got my pencil. And I'm just really, really lightly going to mark where I think the top of my umbrella is going to be. So I know that I'm popping my umbrella here, and I can rub that line out, or I can just move my umbrella up ever so slightly if I want to. So I've got to get foam tape below that line. So all I'm going to do is curve it so that it sits below my pencil line. And before I press that down really well, I'm just going to check that you won't be able to see the ends. I may have cut them a little bit long. Let's see. No, that looks good. It's all hidden under there. Now, obviously, we'll need to build foam tape up underneath the rest of it, but I know that I've got a line at the top. So I can press that down, and if I want to, I can rub out my pencil line. I did exactly the same thing as for the last card, only this time these were more like tube-shaped beads rather than little round ones, but they're going to work in exactly the same way. I've got less on some of these than on others, because obviously the ones in the middle won't need to be as long as the ones at the side because it's curved. I think we'll start with this one that's not got very many, and we'll pop this one in the middle, and it's just exactly the same method. Just make sure your beads are in the middle, pull it tight and pop it on your card. Trim off all our little knots again. Now we can put our top piece on. Now, I didn't say on the last one, if you're worried that your foam tape's not so strong, you could just put like a dot of something like Glossy Accents that dries really well, and just on the strings. So you can go along and do that if you're worried how strong your foam tape is. As I said on when we were doing the last one, at this point you could put another layer of foam tape on and a piece of acetate, and then everything would sit on top of the acetate. So those little dots of Glossy Accents should just hold everything just a little bit tighter. I'm just going to trim off anywhere I've got loads of excess down the bottom here. I can obviously come back and pop another bit, and this is actually going on top of the strings now, so it will add a little bit more reinforcement. And I'm just going to make sure that nothing's going to hang out still before I press it down. Because we know we've not got anything down here, let's put some foam tape down the bottom. And I think I could have pulled my strings a bit tighter, but I think it will still work. Well, we've got our background, we've got our rain, so I just need some sort of greeting. Obviously you could leave it without a greeting if you wanted to. This is whatever the weather, so whatever the weather. And this came with issue, I think it was issue 38 of Creative Stamping magazine, and we're on 150 something and there's like 13 a year. So it's from quite a few years ago. But if you're a member of CraftWorld and you've got the premium membership with CraftWorld, I believe that this is available as a free digital download if you're a premium member. That's where the sun was that I used on my last card as well. I'm going to use this Showering You With Love on Your Special Day. I've already stamped it. I've just got it on my stamp platform. Now I've used the On Your before, and look, I cut up my stamp. So if you've got long stamps like this, sometimes that's going to be too long. So this just about is going to fit on my 5-inch wide card. I was thinking about doing it on a 6-inch square card, but then I didn't have enough height. Because it's such a wide sentiment, I've cut it up and used it in sections, but you can always stick it back together and join it back together when you stamp it, which is what I did. Because I know it's tight, I'm not going to leave it as a strip. I'm going to sort of fussy cut it out. Just fits across my card. I thought it was nice that the love actually lands on the umbrella handle as well. So I just need to put some foam tape or foam squares behind that. Got our little umbrella and the rain's falling, but obviously it doesn't get past the umbrella. And one of my strings is a bit loose, so they don't slide, or one of my beads is a bit tight. I'm not sure which it is, but does it matter? No. So I think that's a really fun way to do something just with some thread and some beads. So hopefully there was something there that maybe you've already got in your stash, that you've got something similar that you could use. I think you could make a lovely snowy scene. You wouldn't need umbrellas. I think you could adapt this to Christmas cards and have it as snow rather than rain. But obviously, up to you. It's just a different way to have a little bit of movement and something interesting going on your cards. And thanks for watching. Hopefully go and hop along to the next person on the list, and I will see you again very soon in another video. Bye for now.